Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Excuse the mess. I just came back from a run, so I'm pretty melted. It's September 1st here in the Great White North in Ottawa, and it's 30 degrees outside. That's over 90 for my American friends. Today we're going to change the starter on a 1997 BMW Z3. The problem with the starter right now is the solenoid is not pushing out the gear and connecting with the flywheel so that the motor turns over. Every now and then when we go to start the car, you turn the key, you hear the starter motor spin, but the engine doesn't turn over because the gear doesn't engage. So we're going to jack up the car. We're going to disconnect the battery because it's always dangerous working on the starter motor with the wires there and the 12 volts connected. Then we're going to attempt to take out the old starter and take a look at it, inspect it, put in a new one, hook up the wires on the starter and solenoid, and then reconnect the battery. Hopefully all will go well and smooth. Let's get going. So we just happen to have the shop manual for this BMW C3, and you'll notice there's an M52 engine and there's an M44 engine. And luckily for us we have the M44 engine, because if you look at the M52 engine it says disconnect the negative battery, remove the air cleaner, remove the intake manifold. So that sounds a little hairy. On the M44 though, it says disconnect the battery and disconnect the wiring from the starter, remove the top and bottom bolts. Bottom bolt must be removed from below the car, remove the guide for the oil dipstick, pull the starter down and inspect it. And that's it. 6 easy steps. Something tells me it's not going to be so easy. So we got the car jacked up, and we're just trying to figure out where the starter is. And they said remove the oil dipstick, so here's the oil dipstick. And if you look in behind it, whoops, get my finger out of the way, you'll see that the starter is tucked way in the back, up in underneath the intake manifold, which makes you wonder, do they really want us to take out the intake manifold? Because that's the starter going in right down there. So you can see there's one of the bolts we have to take out, and the other bolt is way the heck back in there underneath the intake manifold. I didn't think it would be that easy. So in the 97 BMW Z3, the battery's in the trunk, so we have to lift up the board in the trunk, go underneath. You always disconnect the black wire first, because if you're disconnecting the red wire and you touch any metal in the car with the ratchet, you're going to have short circuit and it's not going to be fun. So we disconnect the black first. That means the body's no longer our ground, so that if we do touch the body when we're disconnecting the red wire, nothing bad's going to happen. So there we go, battery disconnected. It's always good to take a look at the new part before we go reefing on the old one. So when we were looking at the car earlier, we saw that the other starter is bolted in something like this. So we saw the bottom bolt. We should be able to get at the top bolt. Once we get it down, we look at the solenoid. There's the plus 12 here, ground goes here, and then these two are for the switch. So if we had these two wires connected and we put a screwdriver across here, the engine would actually turn over. So we just have to be careful when we're taking these things apart, putting them back together. Of course, we disconnected the battery, so we don't have to be that careful. So if we follow the manual instructions, to take the dipstick guide off, all we do is remove this nut right here. Don't drop it. And we just pull the support back for the dipstick, and then just give it a little bit of a turn, and the dipstick comes right out. Okay, so we got it out, and it goes right in here. Let me just turn on the light here, and that'll make it easier to see. Okay, try that again with the light. You can see that's where it goes right there. And the trick to getting it out was the bolts stick through the back, and there's a little hex nut like that one down there that sticks through the back. And the trick is to get your socket onto the hex nut and turn it, because if you do, it'll release really easy. And there's only the 2 bolts, and one of them goes right there where you can see, and the other one goes down a little bit lower. And then you did have to take out the oil stick, take the wires off, and it just rotates down and out. And it's out. So, all done. And it actually was about as easy as what the manual said. There were 2 bolts holding on the starter, and there's 2 pins holding on the starter as well. The bolts, you just take a number 10 socket on even a 1/4 inch ratchet or a 3/8 inch ratchet. You get it in behind the transmission case, and you just put it on that nut. Give it a couple of quick turns. It's relatively easy. It wasn't tight at all. And the bolts are up high enough that they don't get rusty. And then you just take the nuts off with your fingers. You pull the starter out, take the wire nuts off, and the starter just falls right down into your hand. You put the new one on, fit it in, put the wire bolts back on, stick the other bolts back in, but the ones I took out had nuts on them. The new ones, the starter's actually threaded. So I just screwed the bolts right into the casing of the starter, which was threaded, tightened them up, put the dipstick back in, bolted it on, connected up the battery lead, started the car, ran like a charm.